the marshes, we can see just how clearly we are free. Expose the truth behind Scientology. PTS, the Discord.
And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening, good afternoon, or any other part of the world that you might be in. And as you can see this evening, I am joined by one of the OG protesters, as we're calling him, Mr. Jeff Jacobsen. And we're going to talk tonight about the protesting in the old days and comparing it with the protesting that is currently going on. So grab your costumes, grab your towels, and let's dive into the best pool. So good evening, well, good afternoon for you, Jeff.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So let's start, as I intend to start all these interviews. How did you get into the whole protest movement in the first place?
Well, I had been in a cult myself when I was 16 till about 22. It was a Pentecostal type group. Quit that and got involved with the anti-cult movement. And then that's how I learned about Scientology. So from that, I just started to specialize in Scientology. And as far as me protesting, the first time that happened was after I got on the internet in 1994. I got on alt religion Scientology. It's kind of similar to Discord, I guess. And we just started batting around things we could do. And we decided to picket once. That was in 1995 in Arizona. And that went pretty well. And then we just kind of grew from there, I guess you'd say. We wound up going down to Clearwater every year between 96 and 2000 for a bigger picket. Rather than everybody picketing in their local area, we decided to have a big picket in one place. And that's why we did that. So then Anonymous came along and I kind of protested with them. And then off and on in between.
Excellent. And I did see a video on Mark Bunker's channel where you were you protesting with the Lisa McPherson Trust, or did you go separately?
I was the librarian for the Lisa McPherson Trust from 2000, 2001. The Clearwater protest started in 96. Actually, March of 96, I think, was the first picket we did there. So that was before the Lisa McPherson Trust started. After the Lisa McPherson Trust started, Bob Minton liked to picket. Okay. So we'd go out like every other day or something sometimes just because he liked to do it. And I like to do it too. So during that time, it was kind of, you might say, a hodgepodge of different kinds of protests. It was mostly just a few people then, though.
Excellent. So how did you find it when you were out protesting with the lot from Anonymous? Because when they came along, that's when Scientology protesting seemed to explode, for want of a better way of putting it.
Yeah, when we did our protest, like the first protest in Clearwater in 96, we had 18 people, and the first I claim that we did the first international picket organized on the internet. That was in 95. And there was like maybe a dozen cities around the world and maybe like average 5 people in each city, right? So yep. Anonymous comes along. The very first thing they've ever done outside of the internet, they had 7,000 people, worldwide. And it's like, I was like, how did they do that? We've been trying to do this for years, and these guys who never did anything like that before suddenly boomed everywhere. And it was just stunning. Also, I think personally, Anonymous is the gold standard. If you want to look back through history and find the best protests against Scientology, And I don't know how exactly they did that, but they did.
That's why they're called anonymous.
Yeah.
We're not meant to know. But I just find it interesting when you look back at how the protesting was done then. And I am jumping ahead a bit. We will end up coming backwards again in a minute. And looking at how the protests are being done now, Anonymous must be turning in their grave, surely.
Yeah, I haven't kept track of too many of the anonymous members that I knew, so I'm not sure what they think. I actually haven't heard of that their response, so I don't know. Go
Because I
ahead.
know, I believe it was Mark Bunker that said to them that the best way to protest was not to get in faces, so you couldn't get arrested, you couldn't get this happen, you couldn't get that happening, and that's why the protests were set up the way they were.
Right. Originally, Anonymous was doing kind of bad things. They were sending pizza to all the orgs, unsolicited pizza orders. They were black faxing, which back then everybody used a fax machine, and you would fax to the org a piece of paper that was all black, which would use up their toner, of course, and just prank calls, and they were just doing horrible things. And Mark Bunker just made one quick little video, and he said, you guys would be better off just doing legal, peaceful, nice things. And somehow that just changed everything. And they quit doing all that actually sometimes illegal stuff, DDoSing. And some of the anonymous people got arrested for that. So just one smart person with some good advice changed the whole direction of Anonymous's protests.
Absolutely brilliant. And that's where Mike Bunker, of course, got the nickname Wise Beard Man.
Yes. Yeah.
He has a beard and he is wise.
Yeah. Yeah, that video is still on YouTube, I believe.
I believe it is somewhere. I can't remember where. Talking about YouTube, while we're on the subject, you've got your YouTube channel now as well, haven't you?
Well, I just started putting things on that I haven't been using the channel much, except I fly my little quadcopter around and show videos from that and everything. But I've started putting things about Scientology on again. Yeah.
If one of the mods could find the channel thing and put it in the chat, that would be helpful. I forgot to look it up beforehand.
That's all right. Oh, here we go. I see okay. I had the comments off. Sorry.
It's all right. One of my mods will find it. Pete, well, I think Pete's the only. Pete's already done it. Okay, it's been done. So we've added Jeff's channel in the blurb at the bottom. So go over there and subscribe. He's already got 2 very funny videos out about protesting. And it is worth seeing. In fact, while we're on that subject, do you want to show the prop that you showed me beforehand?
Oh, okay. I've got 2 or 3 more I'm working on. I'll probably put one up tonight. And this is a prop from the one for tonight. Put it in your face,
Yeah. Love it. So I know we'll probably be jumping around a bit because now we've ended up on what's happening at the moment. What is your take on the current protests? Because to me, I can't see the point of them.
Well, I don't consider it protesting. When I first saw people going out, they were actually holding signs, on the street, like on the sidewalk, like we used to do. And then it kind of morphed instantly to this other stuff. And they call it auditing, by the way. They don't call it protesting usually. So in that case, I like that they name it something else because I don't think it's protesting. I think they're keeping an eye on Scientology. It's kind of like a cop watch, like William Gould started the whole thing, apparently. And that was his foundation. Cop watch is where you go somewhere, assuming the cops are going to do something bad and you need to be there with your camera to catch it. Okay, so if people are doing that at a Scientology building, that's kind of interesting because sometimes Scientology does bad things. And and you might catch that. But it's not protesting, you know. And then another early influence of what's going on were people that were already vlogging or making a living or whatever, making videos of fun things or whatever anyway. And then they switched to Scientology. So these two influences are not, I don't think, good influences for protesting. They're somewhat useful, but you know, I think things could be way better than they are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for me, I would be, if I was wanting to go out and protest, I'd be wanting to talk to the old school protesters like you, like Mark Bunker and others, and say, right, how should we go about this, rather than shoving a camera in somebody's face.
It's always good to learn from history, I think. You know, there's been peaceful protesting like for 2,000 years or something. So
Oh, absolutely.
there's a long list of places you can learn. You can learn from the civil rights movement in the United States, from Gandhi. Czechoslovakia was Václav Havel and Charter 77. You know, you look up all these things, and these are people that succeeded by using peaceful methods to protest. So it's not that it's not going to work, because it does work. It has worked.
Absolutely.
And I don't see the current auditors, I call them auditors more than protesters, having any concern about history at all. And I think that's pretty sad.
The way I see it is they're more interested in the clicks and the views. That's why I thought your video the other day was extremely hilarious, where you sat in the car saying, well, we're going to drive and we're doing this, because that's basically what they're doing. It's just clicks and views.
Yeah, even if it's nice that they're protesters against Scientology, if you can make money doing that, that's kind of neat. But on the other hand, it's an influence. It's an unconscious influence, if anything else, nothing else. You know, where you think, okay, well, should I put this thing online? It's a little weird, but maybe it'll give me a lot of clicks. I mean, you might even just be subconsciously thinking that. But that I think that's kind of a bad influence in a way to protesting. Plus, Scientology can say, you're out here just to make money. You're not really even against us. You're just out here to make money. You know.
Okay, so on that subject, just a comment that's just come up in the chat. Playing devil's advocate here. This is from Mandy Beach. Why not try something new? What was done in the past? Did it stop Scientology?
Well, there's no magic bullet to stopping Scientology. I mean, you have the federal government raided Scientology in several locations back in the 60s and took them to court. That didn't stop them. You know, so I think we're a little weaker than the federal government, and so I think it's going to be an accumulation of lots of things that will finally wind them down. And also, you have to think about the Soviet Union, for example, seemed to be tough and strong, and in 1989, the wall collapsed. So there could be things going on in the background that are gradually wearing down the organization that we don't know about too. So I personally, I think you do what you can, and that's all you can do.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it took Glasnost with Gorbachev to bring communism down in the end. And how long? When was just after during the First World War that communism came into effect. So that was around for a long time. So if we're making that comparison, it's chipping away at the wall and breaking it down slowly. And that's all we can do. I mean, with what people like Alex are doing in the UK, with contacting members of parliament or prospective members of parliament as they are at the moment, and hopefully setting up some sort of situation where he may be having meetings with members of parliament in the future to have investigations done.
Yeah.
Because it's getting them revealed for what they are.
Yeah. I think, you know, you want to hit them from as many angles and methods as possible. Protesting is one of those methods. It's definitely not what's going to, you know, solely bring them down. Even though we used to think that we were going to do that. I think Anonymous thought that too. You know, we're going to bring them down. And I think maybe William said that too. We're going to destroy you or whatever. No, you're going to put a dent in there. That's about it.
Absolutely. And I suppose my one big complaint about the current protesting, and I'm not against them filming it, I'm not against them getting paid for it and making money from it, but my one big complaint is chasing Scientologists down the road, shouting at them. These are people that one of the things they do is bull baiting. They're used to people shouting at them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that's part. I mean, that's one reason to protest, I think, is to try to show first. Well, there's a lot of reasons to protest, but one is to kind of show people in the organization that there are people who think you're doing the wrong thing. You know, and we think it's so much that we'll come out on the street and we'll even risk being sued by you guys to say this. You know, so I think that's the message to the people inside, but also the message to the people inside should be that the outside world is a nicer place than the inside world. Okay, than in Scientology. So if you're doing, just like you said, if you're doing the same thing that they're getting from the inside, yelling and harassing and whatever, the outside world doesn't look any different or any better. You know, you're the representative at that time of what they see the outside world as.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. They need to we need to persuade these people that the outside world is a better place. And for me, getting in their face like Scientology does, I don't see how it helps.
I just watched
Personal opinion.
I just watched Jenna Miscavige's, I think, latest video, and she said one thing that got her out was just outside people. She wound up being in the middle of nowhere with no way to get back, and there was a few other normal people, I mean outsiders, there, and she asked them for help, and they gave her help just instantly. You know, and she thought, this is pretty neat. You know, outside people are nice, and they're just willing to help me. And that was an influence on her. And Tori Chrisman said something similar too, where one of the protesters way back, this would have been 98 or something, 1998, just asked her a simple question, you know, hey, can I ask you a question? You know, why can't you read certain books? Or some very simple, you know, question like that. And it was just a nice, polite question that got her thinking. And to this day, she says that was a huge influence on her. And it was just a guy being nice to her.
Absolutely. So there are nice ways to go about it and still be able to film it and still be able to have people in your chat and earn from it. And I feel, because I, like yourself, I came out of a Christian background, and it was people outside of Christianity talking to me like I was a human being that made me realize that I didn't have to stay in this bubble. Yeah.
It's simple. I just some of the things the current people are doing are like there's social distancing, which is important. And there's just being nice. You know, you don't have to be in conflict with somebody. You can just be kind to them. You know,
absolutely, and kindness goes a long way.
Yeah. There was a third person I just heard about talking about ex-Scientologist talking about how just someone outside was kind to them, and that really influenced them a lot. And there again, you want to learn from history.
Well, and Patty was saying something similar with the work that she was doing when we did our interviews prior to this one, that it was because of how people outside of Scientology started treating her that she started to wake up.
Okay.
So it works.
Yeah.
But it's each to their own. If people want to go out and do it their way, then so be it. But for me, I just can't see how it can help.
Yeah, that's why I made that video. I don't think the current batch of people, which I have tried to talk to them some, really want to listen to me. So I thought, well, I can explain this stuff to them in a different way. So I made that video. And maybe that'll help. I don't know.
And Glitter Flutterby has just made a good point in the chat. Exposing it as they are can keep people from joining, but it won't get people out. I think that's why effective protesting can be so tricky.
I don't think they're protesting, though. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of hours of video. I obviously haven't seen all of that, but I've watched probably 20 hours worth of stuff, maybe. And the stuff I see is they're walking around, kind of talking to each other, videotaping, hoping to find something weird that happens. They're not really, to me, like I say, protesting is you're trying to communicate to Scientologists, to the public, what's going on. And I don't see them doing that. I see them kind of just keeping an eye on things, and that's totally different.
Yeah, I mean, I get the point. It by keeping it out there and keeping it on the internet is likely to keep people from joining, but there's not many people joining anyway. And one of our members, Theta Novis, was in Scientology in Australia, and she joined during the pandemic, and it was all online anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's okay keeping the doors shut, which is Scientology has been since the anonymous days. Okay, there's a protest, down come the blinds, shut the doors, boom, we're not here. But if it's now happening online, doesn't matter if the doors are shut.
Well, you mean all the YouTube videos and everything?
Yeah. No, Theta Novis was saying she was doing a lot of the initial courses in Zoom calls, for example, rather than actually doing them in the org.
Right.
So even if the doors were shut because of protesters, it was still going on.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. The way I think about, when they first started protesting, like I say in LA, I actually emailed one of the protesters and said, "Man, if you guys keep protesting, I want to come out and join you." And she said, "Okay." But then the more I saw, the more I thought, this is not even what I can figure out you're doing. It's not what I consider protesting. So instead of joining them, I just kind of became a more quiet critic, I guess.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. So with that being said, are you still involved in anything to do with the anti-Scientology movement now, or have you pretty much retired?
Retired. Well, I have lisamcpherson.org, which has been up since 1998, I think, something like that. I just started protestthecult.org, again, trying to communicate a little bit with the current batch of people. So I keep an interest, but one problem for me is the closest org or even anything about Scientology is in Denver, and that's about a 6-hour drive from here where I live. So even if I wanted to protest, it would be a little bit more difficult for me to keep at it,
Absolutely. And auditing Scientology, I have seen your comments, so I am going to bring it up. If the LA protesters are so ineffective, then why is the Church of Scientology trying to shut them down?
That's because they're critics.
Absolutely.
That's the whole job practically of Scientology, is to shut up people that speak out against them. And by the way, I think there's two levels of the church's reaction to them too. One is, like you say, closing the blinds, going away from them and hiding, sort of. That's the lower level people, just told to do the short-term reaction. Okay. Then there's a long-term reaction, which is going to be temporary restraining orders, which a few of those have gone out, and legal attacks, personal attacks on these people. That's, I don't think has started yet even. So while it looks like they might think they're effective because the blinds are coming out and the people are scurrying away, that's not really the reaction. That's just the short-term reaction. You're gonna got to wait for the long-term reaction, and you'll have a different opinion of what's going on.
Mhm. I mean, I've heard of some TROs that have been handed out, but I don't think anybody's actually being sued yet. But I have heard some have been issued with TRO.
Yeah, there's the boob gate. There's DOA. What's that other guy's name? Danny. Three. There might be 4 TROs out already. So it's, it's starting, but I expect if people stay out, which I don't know if they will, but if this continues, the auditing continues, there will be more legal actions.
Absolutely. So going back to the protests that you were heavily involved in back in the day, did you get issued with a TRO, or did they never get to you?
I was deposed 3 times by Scientology attorneys. The first time was in 97 or something. I think that was in the Arnie Lerma's case, where they accused him of violating copyrights and I don't know, weird stuff like that. Of course, I had nothing to do with that, but they used the court system not to win, but to harass. So they pulled me in because they didn't like me picketing and stuff. So 2 or 3 hours of Kendrick Moxon asking me questions and everything. At the end of that, I was supposed to have brought some CDs, so I did, or copies of something, and they were supposed to give me back these copies, I thought, and I was there without an attorney, by the way. So I kept asking, "Can I have my stuff back?" And he says, "No, you can't have that stuff back. It's our stuff." Like I stole it or whatever, online. And he said, and by the way, this is Lynn Farney, who's the head at the time of their legal department. He said, and we're in this fancy rented place on the 12th floor in downtown Phoenix, big, huge lawyer firm. That's where we were. We're walking through this law firm, and he yells at me, "We will raid you and sue you. You are on notice." and all the other lawyers are kind of looking at us, like, what the hell's going on? So it is a very scary time because they were raiding and suing people at that time. So I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do now? But yeah, they've reacted to me in several different ways. They picketed my place of employment when I was in Phoenix. They had PIs outside my house. They would flyer my neighborhood with Jeff Jacobsen as a religious bigot. Geez, I don't even remember all the things they did. Quite a few.
So you had some fun with them then?
It's not fun. It's not something you want to jump into and go, "Oh, this will be easy."
That was a sarcastic fun.
Yeah, but I think some of the current people, some of them who now are in court, kind of maybe thought that, this will be fun. I can do something useful and no problem here. And no, going against Scientology is much different than going against most different groups.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Scientology have a history of using the court system to their advantage, win or lose. They will use it to their advantage.
Yeah, they've got 60 some years of practice doing that, and they've done it all the time. And Hubbard said the purpose of the lawsuit is to harass, not to win. So you have to keep that in mind. You think, okay, I didn't do anything wrong, so they're not going to come after me legally. No, they're going to come after you any way they want to.
and it's crazy how in some cities as well. Of course, they've safe pointed the police, and they've got cover in that respect as well.
Yeah,
because I know wasn't there at one point a divide line that had been put up somewhere near the Lisa McPherson Trust, and you weren't allowed to cross that line, and Scientology wasn't allowed to cross it the other side, and the police were stood in the middle.
yeah. I forgot. I'm still under a permanent injunction in Florida,
Ooh.
where I have to stay 10 feet away from all Scientologists. They have to stay 10 feet away from me. If I'm protesting, I have to use these maps in Clearwater that the judge made of where I can be, where I can stand, what I can do. I'm under that for the rest of my life, unless I want to spend tens of thousands of dollars to try to fight it. And even then, it depends on a judge what he's going to decide.
Absolutely. I mean, this was back in the 90s, early 2000s, and I'm sure Scientology would try it again if they could, because it worked then, so why wouldn't it work now? Is their kind of way of thinking, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I expect that. I mean, that's why they have the TROs on the people right now. My opinion is to just silence the whole group, which I think it looks to me like maybe it's kind of winding down anyway, but I don't know. But if it isn't,
I think some of them will stay out there, because there are one or two that I know are ex-cult members, so therefore they may keep going, but there are a lot that seem to just jump on whatever bandwagon is going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I hope it gets better. I hope it gets better.
Absolutely. But I mean, as I said at the start, I've got nothing against the protesting or the auditing or anything like that. But let's find the balance between keeping an eye on them and being nice to these people, rather than keeping an eye on them and getting in their face.
Yeah. That's the problem. If they were just doing something that I thought was not the way I would do it, that's one thing. But if they doing something that makes things worse, then that's another thing.
I mean, I have to ask this, because it's come up a few times when people have been talking about the protests. What's the point of shouting at somebody who's in Scientology, "Get back in your cult"?
I didn't hear that, but that's the opposite of what you need to be doing.
Absolutely. So this is what I'm saying, is that nothing against them protesting, but think about how you're doing it, and looking at it in a different way. So when after you were protesting back then, and after the Anonymous and everything else, what did you do from that point? After obviously after you'd been banned from certain places in Clearwater and Florida.
Yeah. There's been, different spells of when protesting is popular or whatever, big, and spells when not many people are protesting. So it goes up and down. I consider our protests in the 90s was kind of a rise, and then it went down again, and then all of a sudden, boom, 2008, Anonymous pops up, and it goes sky high, higher than ever it had been. And then that kind of died down. And now this group I was hoping, would pop up and start protesting as a group. But yeah, it kind of goes up and down. And then, like I say, I moved back here in South Dakota in 2008, I think. And then before that, I would protest off and on in LA, in Phoenix, where I was, or whatever. But since I moved up here, it's kind of like, I don't do much of that.
Middle of nowhere, and the nearest org's 6 hours down the road, so it's more difficult.
Yeah.
I have the same problem with where I am in France. I'd love to be able to protest a bit more. But the nearest org is in Paris, which is 3.5 hours down the road. It's probably easier for me to get on a plane from here, fly back to the UK, and go to St. Hill.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, Alex is there, right? He's around
Alex
this time?
is in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fighting East Grinstead Council a lot at the moment.
Yeah. So you have somebody that's doing good work there.
Got a lot of MPs or prospective, or I should say, prospective MPs on side at the moment who are all willing to stand up and talk about it.
Okay.
Once the election's over tomorrow. So they're not actually MPs yet, including John Sweeney.
Oh, yeah.
He's standing in Sutton Coldfield for the Liberal Democrats. So he's got a chance of winning the seat. So
Cool.
we will see. So he might be an MP by Friday morning.
Wow.
We'll see when the results come in.
Something that reminded me of something is as far as protesting goes, that's public and everybody sees you doing that. But there are many people, I think Patty Moore, your previous guest, was one of them, those people doing things in the background that they're not even going to talk about. And
Absolutely.
they're very useful, productive things that probably no one will ever know these people did these things, and they're going on in the background, which that's another thing. You know, you say, well, is protesting going to destroy Scientology? No, but maybe one of these people doing this background stuff might, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that have been writing to their congressmen, their senators about the tax in the 501c3 that they've got and their tax exempt status, and trying to get that removed. In the UK, they don't actually have tax exempt status anymore, but they are still considered a religious organization, and it's getting that overturned that I know Alex is working on in the UK at the moment. And Diane Abbott, who was a Labour MP, she probably still will be tomorrow because she's in one of the safest Labour seats in the country. She had written to HMRC in the UK to get the investigation into Scientology reopened. So, and to me, that is how we can get to the point where Scientology are going to have a rethink, is getting that tax exempt status removed.
Yeah, that's I would say that's the most important thing. Yeah.
So to all my American friends out there, or in any other country where Scientology have tax exempt status, write to your representatives, get them on the case. That's the way forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's people working on that, and we don't know who they are, or
absolutely,
or we might, and we're not going to tell.
And it may not be the most glamorous form of protesting, but it's probably going to be the most effective.
Yeah. So,
because David Miscavige is going to hit the roof if he loses that tax exempt status.
Yeah. So for me, most of the stuff I've been doing is online, just my websites and reacting to things that are going on a little bit. But yeah, that's the main thing I do is just online stuff now.
Yep. Yeah. But it's still a form of protest and helping people out. We can't all be out on the street protesting Scientology every hour of the day.
No. And information, I mean, that's why I love the internet, of course. Information is powerful. And all these websites, one of them just went down, znewdirectory.net, I think it was. I'm hoping that we'll be able to keep these up somehow, to keep all that information that's been collected available to everybody, so people don't have to fish around like we used to have to do for specific information about lawsuits, previous lawsuits, or anything like that. It should all be available to everybody now.
and that brings me on to something I said to Patty when we were talking in part 3 of the interview, that one of the reasons I am doing these videos and talking to people like Patty, talking to people like you, is if we don't keep that history alive and we don't talk about how things used to be done, we're in danger of seeing repeats of Scientology happening again.
Yeah. Just it's a long haul. It's there's nothing's gonna stop it quickly. It's just
Oh no, no. I mean, I think I read somewhere that there was protests outside of St. Hill back in the 70s when L. Ron Hubbard was first around in the UK.
Okay.
So in certainly in the UK, the protesting has been going on and off for what, 40 years now, 50 years.
Yeah, I've been trying to collect all the protests through history that I can find. The first one was in Madeira. Was that an island, I think?
Yeah,
When the Hubbard ship was at the port, and
Yes.
everybody in Madeira was assured that they were the CIA. So
Yeah,
everybody came
Mike
down to
Rinder,
the port and protested, against them.
Mike Rinder got caught up in the middle of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know much about it.
He was something or other in Madeira and was living in a flat in Madeira.
Okay.
And it all kicked off, and he had to have a police escort back to the Apollo to get off the island.
Yeah. So that's the first protest I know of. There was a guy named Frank Notaro who there's a short video of him on YouTube. He, in 1984 or so, was an ex-member who wanted his money back. He went to the Big Blue with a sign that said something, I forget, something about Xenu maybe. And he had a friend nearby keeping an eye on him. And he started walking up and down with his sign in front of the Big Blue. The security guys came out, grabbed him, took him inside, and were holding him against his will. His friend called the cops, and that's the only way he got out of being held against his will. And that's the first, protest in the U.S. I know about. And then,
I mean, I think they were very small protests back in the 70s because the Brits weren't very good at protesting. Okay. Never have been. But there was some people that were against Scientology being at St. Hill.
I just like to keep track of the history and stuff. But before I started protesting, I tried to see, how do you protest, kind of, And the first place I looked was Gandhi. In the first place, Gandhi was successful. He got
he drove the British out of India. I mean, that man didn't even lift a gun once in his life.
Yeah, and his methods work. You could say that. So I tried to. Well, I came up with what I call Gandhi Tech, which is just basically his ideas, and tried to use that. And ever since, I've been trying to study protesting, and like I say, keep up the history of protesting Scientology. Because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's people that have successfully done protesting peacefully all around the world, and we can learn from those people, and get hints and ideas. So that's I try to collect that and get people to look at history as well.
Yep. And and I feel that's the way forward is learning from history and making tweaks from what others did in history, but looking at what was successful.
Yeah.
Because certainly in the late 90s, early 2000s, just before Anonymous came along, Scientology was actually growing. And then the Scientology then the Anonymous protests happened, and then numbers started dropping. So they were doing something right.
Yeah. No, I love Anonymous. It was. I've been to many of their protests in different cities, and it was always fun. And they said, if it's not fun, we're not going to do it. So they always had that in the system, and so the people inside Scientology are looking outside at people dressed up as pirates, singing weird kid songs and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just, I don't know, it's just wonderful to me.
That's it. That's it. If you're going to do anything, have fun doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point in doing it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so the current batch of people, if I want to go back to them a minute, don't seem to be interested in learning how to do something, But even the civil rights movement, those people that were at the restaurants, the cafes, sitting at the counters, they practiced that. They didn't just go there and do it. There's let me just show you one book.
Yep.
I
knew we'd get to the books eventually.
The Children by David Halberstam. This is about the civil rights movement in the 60s. And he says in there that they practiced it. This guy named Lawson was training them what to do if somebody pours coffee over your head, or what to do if they start pushing you. They practiced all these things because they wanted to be peaceful, clear to the end, and consistent. So if you're going to be out there in front of Scientology trying to make a difference, I think studying how to do it is an important thing.
Absolutely, and I would agree with that. So if you had one piece of advice to the current crop of auditors, protesters, whatever we want to call them, what would it be?
Be nice, be a good person, learn what social distancing means, so the other person is comfortable, the ex-member or the citizen walking by, so they don't, you're not doing this, to people.
Absolutely.
That's the main thing, just to be nice. And like I said before, with those certain cases, and I think you said even Patty said that nice people make the difference for people who are in Scientology. They see people outside who are doing nice things rather than being the evil they're supposed to be doing, according to Scientology. That makes a huge influence. So that's what I'd say. Just be nice.
Absolutely. I do want to say to the chat, if you've got any questions, please pop them in. I will star them, and we will come to them as we come to the end of the interview. So just pop your questions into the chat. So moving forward, do you think that if, for example, we get rid of the tax exempt status, do you think that would end Scientology, or would they reappear in some other form?
I think we don't know. Just like the Soviet Union, we didn't know in 1988 that it was going to collapse in 1989. That is the year, right? Wasn't it? Yeah.
89 was the start of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's when the Berlin Wall came down, if I remember rightly.
Yeah. So you also have the issue of there's nobody coming up behind David Miscavige to take over. I guess he's afraid of having somebody like that around. So what's going to happen when there's a hierarchy shift? We don't know. There's a lot of it's a complex thing, and we don't know what's going to happen. I suspect the next 10 years probably they'll still be around, but after that I don't know.
Yeah, right. I mean, people have different theories on who may or may not take over from David Miscavige when his time comes. I've heard everything from Shelley to the lady that he seems to be going round with at the moment are going to be taking over when David finally gives up the ghost. But I suppose that's not a question we're going to know until it actually happens. I mean, we've only got to look back to when L. Ron Hubbard died in 86, I think it was,
Yeah, so
that David Miscavige led a coup and took over. He wasn't actually supposed to be taking over.
right. Yeah, and even in Hubbard's own handwriting, it was that other guy. I forgot his name now.
It
That
was
was hanging out with Hubbard.
Pat and Annie Broker,
Broker,
as far
yes.
as I remember. Yeah.
Yep. I think Hubbard even wrote that they're going to be supposed to be the people to take over, and yet somehow DM got in there instead. So that's what I mean. We don't know what the future is going to be.
And an interesting question from Alonso's blog on that. Are there any lessons we can learn from the David Miscavige takeover?
Yeah, personally, I think there's somebody in the background that's probably as wily as DM, who is setting up the situation so he or she could be the next leader. And how they're doing that, I don't know, but I think DM managed to do it in a sneaky way, and I'm sure there's somebody in Scientology who's being sneaky to set themselves up as the next leader. But I honestly don't know anything about that though. But that's my theory.
Auditing Scientology does make a good point, and I believe it is probably 70% true. A great portion of Scientologists are elderly. I think that Scientology will, on its own, gradually decline as they die off. I say 70% true because there are still some younger second and even third gens that are still in Scientology because it's all they've known.
Plus, you got to think of the money and the real estate they own. That's power. And if you have fewer and fewer members, but you're still a multi-billion-dollar corporation, you still have power and ability there.
Absolutely. So moving on to a question from Alonso's blog. What are your thoughts about the Lisa McPherson Trust and how things turned out there?
I think that the problem with the trust was that they didn't have good management. They were reactive more than just proactive, just setting up what they're going to do and go with that. So that's my opinion. I mean, Bob Minton did amazing things. They tried to do a good thing, and maybe they didn't want someone that was a good business manager because they didn't think they could find somebody who also knew about Scientology. Perhaps, I don't know. It was basically Stacy and Bob Minton that were running things. Stacy Brooks, and neither of those were management material to my way of seeing things. So that to me was the biggest problem in the trust. Of course, Scientology was suing, bringing us to court all the time, daily practically. So, and that was to be expected, I would think. That's another thing. Maybe they didn't expect it would be as bad as it was, but that's gradually wore things down too.
Absolutely. Interesting comment here from Emanon. Apparently asked Janice how David Miscavige took over, and apparently he had some pretty good dirt on Pat Broker, who was no angel, embezzling and such. DM pretty much bamboozled his way to the top.
And somebody else might be collecting information on some of the hierarchy now,
Absolutely.
Same thing happened.
Absolutely. It's the way Scientology is set up. That it's not exactly set up for people to be nice to each other once they get to the top.
Definitely, yeah.
It's set up for people to be stabbing each other in the back. Okay, auditing Scientology, is that for somebody in the chat or an answer that Jeff gave? Because I'm trying to remember the answer.
Just about growth of the church, whether it's growing or
Yeah.
shrinking, I guess.
Educating the younger generation about the Church of Scientology certainly is going to help to stop people from joining, yes, but it doesn't eliminate the born-ins. You're correct, and that's what we're saying, is that there's still some born-ins that haven't come out and are still in and still believe in it, and that's going to help to keep it going, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
And so yes, the helping yes, I mean, it won't be a great number, because auditing Scientologists this point put in that we pointed out, after the elderly die off, some will remain. Yes, there's not going to be a great number, but there will still be Scientologists. That can't be helped.
Yeah.
Because some born-ins don't come out. So is there anything you would like to add that I haven't asked about, or feel that would be pertinent for people to learn?
Just I think we covered it pretty good, actually. I think that just that the main thing is that with the current crop of people is, I hope they will take the time to learn about how things went before and maybe get ideas. For just a quick example of that, I see them chalking on the sidewalk messages, and I think, isn't it more public? Don't you reach more people if you have a sign? If you're holding up a sign, rather than the only people that see what you're writing have to come to the sidewalk and walk on the sidewalk. That's just one tiny little thing that can make things a little bit better, I would think. So I'm hoping still that maybe things will perk up a little.
Yeah, we would, and so am I. I'm hoping that this might reach some of the current crop out there, and they'll have a look at how they're doing it, and some of the ideas might be integrated in what they're doing. I mean, I'm not against them being out there and doing what they're doing, because it is certainly stopping people being dragged in through the doors and being body rooted and recruited that way. So I've got nothing against that. It's just, there's a better way of doing it.
Right. Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, all I can do is I would have, like I say, if I'd have thought it was being done well, I'd be there, once in a while.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm holding back right now.
I'm actually hoping that if the annual Church of Scientology thing happens in St. Hill again this year, like he did last year, and Alex has got a protest organised, I'm actually hoping to get back to the UK to be involved with that one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be good.
So I'm going to try and get back over for that one. So hopefully a good thing. So any other questions from the chat before we tie this up? Because we've been chatting for an hour, and I do try and keep it down to an hour and a half, because I find those long streams, you lose people after about that time. So I try and keep it tight. Okay, that doesn't look like it. Nothing's coming up. So I want to thank you for agreeing to this, Jeff, and joining us this evening and giving us your insight and obviously your history as well. So this has been learning curve for me, because I can remember hearing your name in videos that I used to watch back in the day from Mark Bunker and even Tory. So it's been nice to be able to sit down and put a face to the name and have a chat with you. And so I'd just like to remind anybody in the chat that we do have the Discord, and Pete has been on and off posting the link. You're more than welcome to join. Jeff is a member, and you can come and have a chat with Jeff when he's on,
I'm on.
and many of our other many of our other ex-Scientologists that we've got in there, including Patty Moa, who I did 3 interviews with prior to this. Please like, share, subscribe. Plenty more to come. Next week could be an interesting one. I'm going to be interviewing Dave from Echoplex about how he got involved in anti-Scientology and in the anti-cult and movement as well. So that could be an interesting conversation. And we've got other interviews coming as well. So if you'd like to see more of them, please like the channel, subscribe, and share it out, and let's get this out. And thank you very much for joining me this evening, Jeff. So it's time to take those towels and get back in the warm as we leave the best pool on the internet for the evening. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to the next one.
Through the marshes, we can see just how clearly we are free. Expose the truth behind Scientology. PTS, the discord.